What we're seeing in Australia is extremely disturbing. A Western democracy not too far from us ideologically, devolving into a violent and vicious display of authoritarianism. And that should scare you, to see what little it takes for one of the freest countries in the world to turn into a locked down police state, that the military has been brought into control under the watchful eye of Lieutenant General Freeman, the new commander of the COVID force operations. Australia has one of the lowest rates of COVID deaths in the world, even lower than the numbers China pretend they have. While this may have been contributed to by their lockdowns, it doesn't explain why now, at the tail end of the pandemic, their measures have gotten more and more extreme. It seems like once Scott Morrison got a taste of how it feels to have control over the lives of millions of people, he liked it too much and will continue chasing the rush of power he felt, to the detriment of his people. Despite their low numbers, they're continuing their drive on building COVID camps, environments that will be completely controlled and no one can dream of escaping from. Unlike their previously used COVID hotels, if someone escaped from there, and they did, they made the news, and they were hunted with the ferocity usually reserved for armed and dangerous criminals. Now, some of you might say, well, these are extraordinary measures for extraordinary times. And while that is true, I'd ask you where the limit is. At what point have you gone too far? Is there a limit at all? What about freedom of the press? How important would you say that is right now? Well, the Australian government don't think it's that important at all, even for matters completely unrelated to the pandemic. And in fact, before this pandemic even happened, in June 2019, the Australian police raided the ABC office for broadcasting stories they didn't like about the war in Afghanistan. The stories shed light on possible war crimes committed by the Australian military that the government covered up. And now they've rushed through a bill that gives the Australian authorities unbelievable power. They can, and without a warrant, or you even knowing, access any of your devices and have a poke around your files. The added powers are data disruption warrants, account takeover warrants, network activity warrants. A data disruption warrant enables the agencies to add, copy, delete, or alter data on devices. There's an emergency use clause that lets them use this without any warrant at all. An account takeover warrant speaks for itself, but they can lock people out of accounts and remove 2FA, or two-factor authentication. Network activity warrants allow access to networks where there is suspicion of serious online offences, although they downplay the word serious in the bill, so it really could mean anything. I can't help but feel Australia is a testing ground for these new policy choices before they're rolled out and used in other Western nations, or they're giving other Western nations ideas for similar policies down the line. I mean, if it worked there, it should work here, right? Well, we really need to take a close look at our leaders and figure out if this is what they're planning. It's also very important to look into the finances of politicians to see who they're getting donations from, who their backers are. I'm going to be looking very closely into international organizations and seeing their ties to world governments, and I'll be making videos on that because we need to find out what their ultimate goals are. Anyway, that'll do it for this one. This is a lot shorter than I thought it would be, but the true crime channel I talked about in the last video, it's up and running and only has one video yet, and the case it talked about has actually been resolved. But I'm planning a very in-depth video about the Long Island serial killer, and that will hopefully be up this week, hopefully early this week. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description and the little information tab thing. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you over there. And as always, thank you for your time.